The wind howled like a grieving spirit outside the frosted glass doors of Northridge Mall. Nestled in the snowy, isolated expanse of Alaska, the mall stood like a monolith, a forgotten monument caught between wilderness and emptiness. I should have never taken the night shift. I thought it was just another job, a paycheck to help with bills. But now I know better. There are rules here. Rules you must follow, or you won't survive. My name is Ethan, and I took the job at Northridge Mall's night shift as a security guard because it seemed easy, warm, indoors, and far from the bitter Alaskan cold. The interview was strange from the start. The mall manager, an older man named Mr. Holloway, looked me in the eye with a mixture of pity and concern. "You seem capable enough," he said, his voice raspy and tired. "But this place has quirks, rules you must follow. Miss one, and you may not see morning." I thought it was a joke, some creepy initiation for the new guy. But the seriousness in his eyes wiped the smirk off my face. He handed me a neatly folded piece of paper with 10 rules printed in bold, each one more bizarre than the last. 1. Lock the main entrance at exactly 10 p.m. No exceptions. 2. Never respond to the sound of a child crying. It is not a child. 3. Avoid looking directly at any mannequins after midnight. They move when unseen. 4. If you hear soft, melodic humming from the south wing, do not investigate. 5. At 1:15 a.m., you must check the toy store. The clown doll must be seated facing the door. 6. If the power flickers, count to 10. If it doesn't stabilize by then, hide immediately. 7. Do not use the bathroom between 2 a.m. and 2:15 a.m. Lock the doors instead. 8. If you see a tall woman in a red dress, do not speak to her. She is not a customer. 9. By 3 a.m., you must sweep the food court. Do not pick up any coins you see. 10. Never, under any circumstances, leave your post before 6 a.m., even if you think you're alone. Mr. Holloway's stern voice echoed in my ears as I read the list. These rules are not negotiable, Ethan. Keep them with you at all times. I was skeptical, of course. I had heard of superstitions, old ghost stories passed around to scare the new guy. But this felt different. The seriousness on Mr. Holloway's face, the cold fear in his voice, it stuck with me. But I was desperate for a job. I needed the money, and I convinced myself that it was all a prank. My first night was uneventful, almost painfully boring. I walked the dimly lit corridors, my flashlight casting long shadows over dusty storefronts. The flickering neon signs and the silent, empty food court seemed ordinary, if not a little eerie in the stillness. But the second night, the rules became more than just ink on paper. It started at midnight. I was patrolling the east wing when I heard it. Soft, distant crying. A child, somewhere in the darkness. My first instinct was to run toward the sound, but the rule echoed in my mind. Never respond to the sound of a child crying. It is not a child. Chills ran down my spine. I forced myself to keep walking, the sobs growing louder, more desperate. My heart pounded, and sweat trickled down my forehead despite the cold. And then, just as suddenly as it began, the crying stopped. I leaned against the wall, breathing heavily, trying to calm my racing heart. I must be tired, I told myself, just hearing things. But then came the soft, melodic humming, a sweet, haunting tune echoing from the south wing. Rule 4. My legs felt like lead, my breath quickened. I turned and walked the opposite direction, keeping my eyes forward, my flashlight shaking in my grip. Hours passed in a slow, agonizing crawl. I checked the toy store at exactly 1:15 a.m., and sure enough, the clown doll was lying on the floor, its painted grin staring up at me. My hands trembled as I picked it up and placed it facing the door, just as the rule demanded. As I stepped back, I saw a flicker of movement in the store's dark corner, a faint, human-like shape shifting, then vanishing into the shadows. I stumbled back, slamming the door shut, locking it behind me. I tried to rationalize it all, fatigue, a vivid imagination, but every time I convinced myself, something else happened. The lights in the corridor flickered. 1, 2, 3. I began counting, a desperate whisper under my breath. 4, 5, 6. The light continued to sputter. 7, 8, 9. And then darkness. I ran. My flashlight beam danced across the walls, the shadows seeming to pulse and shift. I ducked into the janitor's closet, closing the door quietly, forcing my breathing to slow. Minutes felt like hours. My phone screen showed 2:02 a.m. Panic surged. Rule 7. Do not use the bathroom between 2 a.m. and 2:15 a.m. I was too close to the restrooms, the dim hallway just outside. I held my breath, listening. A distant, heavy breathing echoed from the bathroom, wet and ragged, like someone struggling to breathe. My hand tightened around the flashlight. Don't look. Don't open the door. At 2:15 a.m., the sound stopped. I dared to take a breath, wiping the sweat from my forehead. When I finally stepped out, the hallway was empty, the silence heavy and suffocating. The food court was the final test. I swept the dusty tiles, ignoring the faint whispers that seemed to drift from the shadows. Coins glittered under the scattered neon lights, but I didn't touch them. I knew better now. By the time the first rays of morning light pierced the mall's frosted glass, I was a trembling mess, my hands numb with fear. I met Mr. Holloway at the entrance, and he simply nodded, his face unreadable. "Did you follow the rules?" he asked, his tone almost sympathetic. "Yes," I whispered, trying to steady my voice. "Good. You did well, Ethan. Not many make it through their first week." His words sank like stones in my stomach. Not many make it through. I want to quit, walk away, never step foot in that cursed mall again. But the pay was good, and I was too proud to admit defeat. But as the days turned to nights, I would soon realize that surviving one night was only the beginning. Because the rules weren't just a list of bizarre instructions. They were a desperate attempt to contain something much older and far more dangerous. And the worst part, not all the rules are written. I told myself I would quit. That second night at Northridge Mall had frayed my nerves to their breaking point. But when the sun rose and the icy Alaskan winds howled outside, I felt a strange numbness settle over me. Maybe it was pride, maybe desperation. I told myself it was just a job, just rules to follow. And so I returned. Mr. Holloway met me at the entrance again, his wrinkled face a mask of calm that only made me more uneasy. He didn't say much, just handed me a fresh copy of the rules, this time with a handwritten edition at the bottom. Rule 11. If you hear someone whisper your name, do not turn around. They're not calling you. My heart skipped a beat. Another rule. My hand trembled slightly as I folded the paper and slipped it into my pocket. Why do the rules keep changing? I asked, trying to keep the panic from my voice. Mr. Holloway's expression softened, but his eyes were dark with something I couldn't quite place. Pity, fear, or maybe guilt. The mall, It changes, adapts, and so do the rules. Just remember, Ethan, survival means obedience. With that, he turned and walked away, leaving me alone in the dimly lit entrance hall. I began my shift the same way I always did, walking the main corridors, flashlight in hand, try to ignore the shadows that seemed to cling to the edges of the stores. The faint hum of the heating vents filled the silence, but it was a hollow comfort. The first hour was calm, almost peaceful, but the stillness only made me more nervous. My eyes constantly flicked to the shadows, expecting to see a figure darting away. The mannequins in the clothing stores stood in their frozen poses, but I couldn't shake the feeling that they were watching me. Midnight struck, and the quiet broke. From the south wing, I heard the familiar melodic humming, a sweet, almost hypnotic tune. Rule 4. I forced myself to walk in the opposite direction, my grip on the flashlight tightening until my knuckles ached. And then, the crying started again. That same childlike sobbing, muffled and distant. But this time it was followed by a voice, a low, coaxing whisper. Please, please help me. I'm lost. My chest tightened. Was it a trick? Another trap? But the voice was so real, so desperate. My legs felt locked, caught between instinct and fear. The rules screamed in my mind. Never respond to the sound of a child crying. It is not a child. But what if it was? What if someone was trapped here, just like me? I took a shaky step forward, the light of my flashlight trembling. Hello, I called, my voice barely more than a whisper. Who's there? Silence. Then, a soft, chilling giggle echoed from the darkness. A cold gust swept through the corridor, and I felt a presence. Something cold, watching, waiting. I stumbled back, nearly losing my grip on the flashlight, and ran. The sobbing followed me, twisting into laughter, a sound that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. I didn't stop running until I reached the toy store. My breath came in ragged gasps, mist forming with each exhale in the cold air. I checked my watch. 1:12 a.m. 3 minutes until the clown doll needed to be facing the door. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to peer through the glass. The doll was gone. Panic flared in my chest. I scanned the shelves, the display tables, but the grinning clown was nowhere in sight. My fingers fumbled with the lock, and I stepped inside, my flashlight beam sweeping the room. Come on, where are you? I whispered, dread gnawing at me. A faint rustling came from behind me. I spun, and there it was, sitting on the counter, its painted smile wide, its beady black eyes staring straight at me. I approached cautiously, heart pounding. It hadn't been there a second ago. My hand trembled as I picked it up, turning it to face the door. I backed away, refusing to take my eyes off it. Stay there, I whispered, as if the doll could understand. As I turned to leave, I saw something in the reflection of the glass door. Another shape, tall and thin, standing just behind me. My blood froze. I spun around, but the store was empty. I stumbled out, locking the door, my chest heaving. The next hour dragged by, each second a fresh wave of anxiety. I avoided the restrooms, knowing Rule 7 by heart. But as I stood in the food court, ready to begin sweeping, a faint whisper drifted through the still air. Ethan. My heart leapt into my throat. Rule 11. If you hear someone whisper your name, do not turn around. The voice came again, closer this time. Ethan, help me. It was familiar, my mother's voice. My legs trembled, tears stinging my eyes. This was impossible. My mother was hundreds of miles away, safe in Anchorage. I know you can hear me. Please. My fingers gripped the broom, my knuckles white. I stared straight ahead, refusing to turn. The whisper became a desperate sob. Ethan, don't leave me. I squeezed my eyes shut, whispering the rules under my breath like a prayer. My breath quickened, the cold air slicing my lungs. Suddenly, silence. The whisper faded, swallowed by the void. I forced myself to finish sweeping, ignoring the scattered coins that seemed to shimmer in the pale light. By the time I returned to the main corridor, the first gray light of dawn was seeping through the frosted glass. Mr. Holloway was there, his face grave. "Did you hear it?" he asked, voice low. I nodded, feeling drained, my hands still trembling. "It won't be the last time," he murmured. "The mall, it knows you now. It tests you. And if you keep surviving, it will only grow bolder." "What is this place?" I whispered, a cold dread settling in my stomach. "What is it hiding?" Mr. Holloway's gaze drifted to the darkened corridors, his voice barely above a whisper. "Some say it's cursed, a gateway. Others say it's alive, feeding off those who get too close. But the truth, no one knows. Not even me. I want to quit. I wanted to walk away, leave this nightmare behind. But that night, as I lay awake in my small apartment, the fear faded, replaced by something darker. Curiosity. What was this place? What lurked in those shadows, obeying those strange rules? And how far would it go to keep its secrets hidden? Despite everything, I found myself returning the next night, because something told me the mall wasn't done with me. The third night at Northridge Mall didn't start with a warning. It started with a whisper. I had just stepped through the main entrance, the frigid Alaskan wind biting at my face, when I saw it. A small, white envelope lying on the security desk. My name was scrawled across it in dark, scratchy handwriting. Ethan. My fingers were numb with cold as I ripped it open, my heart already racing. Inside was a single note. "They are watching you now. Do not trust the mirrors." My stomach twisted. Another rule? But this wasn't for Mr. Holloway. It was written in that same frantic, uneven script I had seen in the janitor's closet my first night. Scrawled on the wall in faint chalk, "Get out while you can." I shoved the note into my pocket, my eyes scanning the dark corridors. The mall was quiet, the dim emergency lights casting long, sinister shadows. I should have quit. I knew that. But something pulled me back. Fear, yes, but also a twisted sense of determination. A need to understand. Mr. Holloway was nowhere to be seen tonight. No comforting lecture, no reminder of the rules. Just me, the darkness, and that growing sense of dread gnawing at my insides. I began my usual patrol, the flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. The air felt heavier tonight, the silence thick and oppressive. Each step echoed, swallowed by the empty halls. And then the mirrors. Northridge Mall had a cosmetic store near the West Wing, the front line with tall, ornate mirrors. I had always ignored them, kept my gaze low, but tonight they felt different. The dim light shimmered across their surfaces, and in the darkness, I saw something. Movement. My own reflection stared back, pale and exhausted. But behind me, just at the edge of the mirror's frame, something else moved, slow, shifting a dark, shadowy form. My heart raced. I spun around, but the hallway was empty. A chill swept over me. Do not trust the mirrors. I didn't need to be told twice. I walked faster, forcing myself to look away, but the feeling of being watched never left. At midnight, the soft humming began, faint, melodic, coming from the south wing. I turned the other way, my steps hurried, trying to drown out that sickly sweet tune. But then the lights flickered. Once, twice. Panic surged. 1, 2, 3. I counted, my voice barely above a whisper. 4, 5, 6. The lights shuddered, then died, plunging the corridor into darkness. 7, 8, 9. I stumbled forward, my flashlight's beams swinging wildly. 10. Nothing. My breath came in short, ragged gasps. The darkness pressed around me, heavy and suffocating. Then a faint, rustling sound, like paper scraping against stone. My flashlight caught it. One of the mirrors, but this time, something stood on the other side. Not a reflection, but a shape. Dark, tall, and leaning closer. I turned and ran. My footsteps echoed wildly, my breath a desperate, panicked gasp. I didn't know where I was going, just away from that impossible figure in the mirror. My frantic sprint led me straight to the toy store. I stopped, my pulse pounding in my ears. 1:13 a.m. The clown doll. I forced myself to look through the glass. It was there, slumped on the floor, its painted grin twisted into a grotesque smile. I unlocked the door with shaking hands, stepped inside, and grabbed the doll, placing it to face the door. But as I backed away, I saw them, reflections, faint, in the store's glass display cases. Dozens of shadows, moving, swaying, watching. My fingers fumbled with the lock, and I stumbled out, slamming the door shut behind me. "Stay out," I whispered, though I knew it was a useless plea. I ran toward the main corridor, the oppressive darkness chasing me. But as I rounded the corner, I stopped dead. A tall woman in a red dress stood in the center of the hallway, her back to me. Her dark hair flowed down her shoulders, her head tilted slightly. Rule 8. If you see a tall woman in a red dress, do not speak to her. She is not a customer. I took a step back, my breath caught in my throat. Her head twitched, a slow, jerking motion, and I could feel her eyes on me, even though she hadn't turned around. I wanted to run, but my legs were frozen. Cold, dread-filled seconds passed. Finally, her head twisted slowly, her face obscured by her hair. A faint whisper escaped her lips, something like a soft, garbled moan. The sound sent ice down my spine. I forced myself to take another step back, and then another. The hallway stretched impossibly long, the shadows seeming to close in. Then the woman's form shimmered, like smoke caught in a breeze, and she was gone. I stumbled forward, my breath ragged, and nearly collided with the food court's entrance. The clock read 3 a.m. I grabbed the broom, forcing myself to sweep, trying to steady my shaking hands. Coins glittered on the tiled floor, more of them this time, scattered, almost forming a path. I ignored them, my eyes fixed on the broom, sweeping away imaginary dust. But then a chill swept through the air, and I heard it, a faint, distant voice. "Ethan, come back." My chest tightened. That voice again, my mother's voice. I clenched my teeth, tears stinging my eyes. "You're not real. You're not real." But the voice continued, soft and pleading. "Ethan, please, you can't leave me here." I bit down hard, focusing on the rhythmic sweep of the broom. "Don't look. Don't answer. It's just the mall. Just another trick." By the time I finished, the first pale light of dawn was pushing through the frost-coated glass. I didn't wait for Mr. Holloway this time. I rushed outside, gasping for the crisp, frozen air. But something was wrong. Even in the harsh morning light, the mall's reflection on the frosted glass seemed wrong. Twisted, warped. Shadows moved, shifting like a storm behind the glass. I turned to leave, but a faint scratching caught my ear. I looked back. My own reflection stared at me, pale, wide-eyed, and smiling. I stumbled back. A scream caught in my throat, but when I looked again, it was gone. Just my tired, terrified face staring back. I returned home that morning, but sleep didn't come. My mind raced, fragments of terror replaying, whispers, shadows, mirrors that didn't behave. The mall was a maze, not just of hallways, but of impossible rules, each one a test. I told myself I wouldn't return, but when the sun set, I found myself at the entrance again, because I needed to know, and as I stepped inside, the darkness seemed to welcome me. The fourth night was different from the moment I stepped inside. The air was thick, oppressive, almost alive. A suffocating stillness clung to every shadowed corridor. I didn't even make it to the security desk before I noticed it. New rules. 3 freshly printed sheets were taped to the glass door, the same scratchy handwriting. Rule 12. If you hear tapping on the glass, do not look outside. It is not the wind. Rule 13. If the mannequins are not in their usual positions, leave the area immediately. Rule 14. The south wing is off limits tonight. Do not enter for any reason. My hands trembled as I read them. More rules. Each one was a noose tightening around me. But despite everything, I was here. Because the fear wasn't the worst part. It was the unanswered questions, the gnawing curiosity. What is this place? Why were the rules changing? I grabbed my flashlight, tucked the list of rules into my pocket, and began my patrol. But I didn't get far. The lights flickered almost immediately. Erratic, a frantic strobe that painted the hallways in flashes of shadow and pale light. My heart raced. 1, 2, 3. I counted under my breath, trying to steady myself. But they didn't stop. Flicker. Darkness. Flicker. A pale, sickly glow. My breath came in shallow gasps as I forced myself to move. The shadows seemed thicker tonight, and I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I needed to get to the toy store by 1:15 a.m. It was an anchor in this nightmare, something I could control. But as I reached the central hallway, I stopped cold. The mannequins, they were scattered across the corridor, their blank, plastic faces tilted toward me. I felt a chill run down my spine. They were never this far out. Rule 13. If the mannequins are not in their usual positions, leave the area immediately. I took a step back, but then they moved. Just a slight twitch. One of their hands turning, another's head tilting ever so slightly. I spun, running down the opposite corridor. My flashlight beam danced wildly, shadows writhing on the walls. But the mannequins seemed to follow, lining the hallways now, their glassy, dead eyes fixed on me. Stay away, I whispered, my voice cracking. As I stumbled past the cosmetics store, the mirrors caught my eye. My reflection seemed twisted, pale and wide-eyed, staring back with a frozen grin. But behind me, I saw them. Those shadows again, dark, shifting shapes that clawed at the edges of the mirror surface. I turned away, forcing myself forward, my feet pounding against the tiled floor. But the flickering lights turned the hallway into a twisted, chaotic blur. A faint tapping sound echoed to my right, soft, rhythmic like fingers drumming on glass. Rule 12. Don't look outside. But the tapping grew louder, frantic, as if something was trying to break in. I gritted my teeth, forcing myself to keep moving. My watch read 1:12 a.m. 3 minutes until I had to fix the clown doll. My heart pounded, my breath ragged. The toy store door loomed ahead, but I skidded to a halt. It was wide open. The glass was shattered, and the shelves were overturned. And in the center of the chaos sat the clown doll, its painted smile twisted, its dark, beady eyes staring directly at me. I stepped in cautiously, glass crunching under my shoes. The air was freezing, my breath misting before me. I reached out to pick up the doll, but something else caught my eye. Tiny footprints, dusty and childlike, scattered across the store. A chill swept through me. I grabbed the doll, its plastic body cold in my hands, and turned it to face the door. But as I backed away, I saw something else. A second clown doll, identical, sitting on the floor just behind the counter. That wasn't supposed to be there. Panic surged in my chest. I ran, slamming the door shut, my hand shaking as I fumbled with the lock. But as I turned, I saw them again, the mannequins. They were closer now, lining the hallway, blocking my path. I stepped back, my flashlight beam darting between them. I couldn't go back the way I came. The south wing was forbidden tonight. But the mannequins were closing in, their stiff, plastic limbs shifting with every flicker of the lights. "Stay back," I shouted, my voice desperate. One of them leaned forward, its blank face inches from mine, a crack splitting across its featureless face. My legs moved on instinct, and I charged forward, ducking between them. Cold, stiff arms brushed against me, but I didn't stop. The restroom hallway loomed ahead. I didn't want to be here, but I had no choice. The lights flickered again, and a thick, dark shadow swept across the corridor. My pulse pounded in my ears. I needed to get to the food court. 3 a.m. was coming. I stumbled in, the wide open space somehow more suffocating than the narrow corridors. My watch read 2:50 a.m. I grabbed the broom, my hands trembling, and began sweeping, my eyes darting to the darkness beyond. Coins scattered the floor again, but tonight they were arranged in a circle, almost deliberate. I ignored them, my breaths coming in shallow, rapid gasps. But the whispers started, faint and distorted, coming from all directions. "Ethan, help us. Ethan." I squeezed my eyes shut, forcing myself to keep sweeping. "Don't listen. Don't look." But the whispers grew louder, desperate, agonized. A chill swept over me, and I saw them. Dark shapes, faint and flickering, pressing against the glass of the food court entrance. Their faces were pale, empty, their hands clawing at the glass, their mouths twisting in silent screams. 3 a.m. came, but the whispers didn't stop. I dropped the broom, backing away. The shapes pounded against the glass now, the sound rising, a frantic, deafening thunder. The lights flickered wildly, the darkness pulsing, the air growing thick. I stumbled back, desperate, my voice a broken whisper. "This isn't real. It can't be." Suddenly, a hand clamped onto my shoulder. I screamed, spinning around, but it was Mr. Holloway, his face pale, his eyes wide with terror. "Ethan, you weren't supposed to be here tonight," he hissed, his voice frantic. "What?" "The rules. The rules changed. The mall, it's changing faster now. It knows you're here. You stayed too long." His words were a blur, but fear gripped me. The shapes were pressing harder against the glass, cracks spreading across its surface. "We have to go. Now." Mr. Holloway dragged me down the corridor, the pounding growing louder, the shadows writhing. But as we reached the main entrance, the glass shattered, a flood of darkness spilling into the mall. I saw them, those twisted, pale faces, those clawing hands, reaching out, grasping, dragging themselves across the floor. Mr. Holloway shoved me through the door, and I collapsed onto the icy pavement outside. The cold air burned my lungs, but I didn't care. I was alive. The darkness pressed against the glass, distorted faces writhing beneath the surface, but it didn't cross. The morning light was beginning to seep through the gray sky, and with it, the shadows faded, swallowed by the cold, empty mall. Mr. Holloway's gaze was distant, his voice hollow. "It's not just haunted, Ethan. It's hungry." I stared at him, trembling, my breath ragged. "Then why keep the place open? Why not destroy it?" He looked at me, his expression unreadable. "Because something worse waits if we do. And the rules, they're the only thing that keeps it contained." But I wasn't so sure, because I had seen something in the darkness, something that recognized me. And I knew it wasn't done with me yet. I didn't sleep after the fourth night. The memories clawed at me. The shattered glass, the darkness spilling in, those pale, grasping faces twisting in agony. Mr. Holloway's words echoed in my mind. "It's not just haunted, Ethan. It's hungry." And yet, as the sun set and the frigid Alaskan winds whispered against my apartment window, I knew I would return. Not because I was brave, but because the questions were eating me alive. Why did the mall change? What was it hiding? What did it want? This time, I didn't wait for Mr. Holloway. I arrived early, my flashlight clutched tightly in my trembling hand. The entrance was cold, deathly quiet, the shadows darker than ever. But something was different. The rules were gone. My chest tightened. No list taped to the glass. No fresh instructions waiting for me. Only the silent, yawning darkness of the mall. I stepped inside, each footfall a thunderous echo. A sickly, pale glow washed over the corridors. The emergency lights flickered, casting long, twisted shadows. I moved cautiously, my flashlight beam cutting through the dark. The air was frigid, each breath a mist. As I passed the toy store, I glanced inside. The clown doll was gone. My heart raced. I quickened my pace, every instinct screaming at me to leave. But I couldn't. Not yet. Not without answers. Then I saw it. An open door in the far corridor. One that had always been locked before. The maintenance room. My fingers were numb with fear as I pushed the door open. The narrow hallway stretched ahead, the walls lined with cracked, yellowed tiles. Faint, flickering bulbs cast an eerie, sickly light. The air smelled damp, rotten. My footsteps echoed, and with each step, a low, almost imperceptible whisper seemed to follow me. But I forced myself forward, and then I saw it, the security office. But it wasn't just a security room. It was a shrine. Photographs covered the walls, grainy, faded pictures of the mall's hallways, taken at different times, some decades old. Each photo was marked with strange, twisted symbols drawn in chalk. Some showed the mannequins, others the shadows I had glimpsed in the mirrors. And in the center of the room was a large, dusty table covered with old, leather-bound journals. I picked one up, my hand shaking. The writing was a frantic scrawl, barely legible. "It's alive. The mall. It changes, it tests, it feeds. We thought the rules would contain it. We were wrong. Another page read, "Those who stay too long become part of it. They are lost, their faces twisted in the dark." A chill swept over me. The faces I had seen in the glass, the clawing hands, the whispering shadows. They weren't just ghosts. They were people. A rustling behind me snapped me from my thoughts. I spun, and my flashlight's beam landed on Mr. Holloway, standing in the doorway, his face a mask of shock. "Ethan, you shouldn't be here," he whispered, his voice trembling. "What is this place?" I demanded, my voice cracking. "Why did the rules change? What are those things?" His shoulders slumped, and he stepped inside, shutting the door. "You weren't supposed to know. No one is. We try to protect the town. We thought the rules would contain it, keep it satisfied. But it's changing. It's learning. Learning." I felt sick. "Learning what?" "To hunt," he whispered. "To manipulate. And you've been here too long. It knows you." A cold dread washed over me. Then why keep me here? Why not just close them all? "Because it doesn't let go," he said, his voice cracking. "Once it knows you, it doesn't forget." A sudden crash echoed from the hallway. We both froze. Then a chorus of whispers, rising and falling, a twisted, agonized symphony. "It's awake," Mr. Holloway whispered, his face pale. "It knows we're here." He grabbed my arm, dragging me through a back door that led to a narrow, crumbling staircase. The darkness seemed thicker here, pressing against us, clawing at the edges of my vision. "We need to get out. The main entrance." But the whispers grew louder, and the walls seemed to pulse, the cracked tiles twisting, shifting. A door slammed shut behind us, and the air grew heavy, suffocating. "Run!" Mr. Holloway shouted. We burst into a side corridor, but the lights flickered, and the shadows stretched, clawing toward us. A twisted figure emerged from the darkness, pale and distorted, its mouth a gaping void. "Don't look at it," Mr. Holloway shouted, his grip tightening on my arm. But I couldn't help it. I glanced back, and the figure's hollow, empty eyes met mine. A crushing weight fell over me, the air growing colder, and the whispers twisted into a mocking, maddening chorus. "Ethan, stay, you belong here." A sharp pain shot through my head, and the darkness pressed closer. But then I felt a jolt, Mr. Holloway yanking me forward. "Ethan, focus. Don't listen." I forced myself to look away, stumbling forward. The hallway seemed to stretch endlessly, but then, faintly, I saw it. The glass doors of the entrance, pale morning light breaking through. But the shadows were faster. They surged, clawing at the walls, the ground, twisting, writhing. Mr. Holloway shoved me forward. "Go. Don't look back." I broke into a desperate sprint, the light growing brighter. The whispers rose to a frantic, agonized scream. I burst through the glass doors, collapsing onto the icy pavement, the cold air burning my lungs. I looked back. Mr. Holloway was at the door, but the shadows clung to him, pale, twisted faces pressing against his back, his own face twisted in horror. "Run!" he screamed, his voice a distorted echo. The darkness swallowed him, and then the mall was still. Empty. Silent. I staggered to my feet, stumbling through the snow. The morning sun was rising, but it brought no warmth. My breath was a ragged, frozen mist, my thoughts a frantic storm. I didn't go home. I drove. Out of town, past the snow-covered mountains, until the mall was just a distant memory. But even as the miles stretched, the fear never left me. Because I knew now, the mall was alive, and I had seen it. It had seen me. But even here, in the safety of my car, I couldn't shake the feeling that it was watching, that it remembered. A week passed. I tried to forget. I didn't look back. But last night, something changed. My phone buzzed at midnight. A message from an unknown number. "You broke the rules, Ethan. It's waiting for you." And outside, just beyond the edge of the parking lot, a figure stood, tall, thin, its face a pale blur in the darkness. I should leave. I should keep driving, never look back. But I know it won't matter, because it knows me now, and it's only a matter of time before it comes for me. The end.